Hi, and welcome to Prenatal Wellness Talks. Today with Dr. Antonella Sansone, exploring how mindfulness and relational awareness during pregnancy can shape the emotional field between mother and baby and how it can influence early development and well-being. Dr. Sansone, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Susanna. Thank you for inviting me here. I'm really excited to share my knowledge with the audience.
To begin with, could you please introduce yourself and tell us about your work in prenatal psychology, mindfulness, integrative health?
I am a clinical psychologist. I graduated a long time ago, but over time I became more interested in health and well-being and how to enhance health and well-being in individuals, societies, and humanity, the planet, and also interested in how to instill human qualities. So not just health, but well-being and, human, in particular, evolution. And I started, familiarizing with this field a long time ago. My thesis in clinical psychology was also already on obstetrics and gynecology, and in particular on the association between body image and amenorrhea, the absence of menstruation in teenagers, and the relationship with conflicting relationship with the mother. Then I did a postgraduate training, the gynecology and obstetrics ward of a hospital in Rome, where I met Lucio Zichella, who is well known mainly by the International Society of Prenatal and Perinatal Psychology and Medicine. And he actually introduced me to the world of pregnancy, the relationship between maternal mental health and pregnancy outcomes and child development outcomes. Then I met him again at a conference organized by ISPPM, and I met Ludovic Janus. I became an active member of the ISPPM, and then I also came across the developmental origins of health and disease framework, which describes very clearly the association between experiences in the womb and health outcomes, long-lasting health outcomes. But I became increasingly interested in how to instill human qualities, virtues in children. I discovered the power of mindfulness. And I came to know mindfulness from a theoretical and empirical perspective. I joined a course to teach mindfulness, which included 5 retreats in Devon. So actually I approach it via my self-development and personal experience. And I started using it with mothers, pregnant mothers in London I was working with. And I noticed incredible benefits on them.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that I would like to stress out, because you even wrote a book. You wrote the book Cultivating Mindfulness to Raise Children Who Thrive, that explores that idea that the human development begins even before birth. So you're now talking about that. Tell us what inspired you to write the book.
Yes, because obviously, reading a lot about prenatal psychology, I also saw a lot of gaps. For instance, the teaching prenatal psychology is not a theoretical teaching, because it only affects the cognitive awareness. So when we say, oh, it's important, to help parents become aware of, the prenatal. It only, especially nowadays with social media, only affect the cognitive awareness, which is not what we need. It's not what parents need. They need an embodied awareness. And this is why mindfulness is wonderful in this, because it's about practice. For instance, in my program, which I will describe a little bit later, I combine theoretical teaching of prenatal psychology, epigenetics, interpersonal neuroscience, and indigenous wisdom, mindfulness, etc., but with the practice. Okay, so every session is followed by 20 minutes meditation. So it's a practice which helps, because, to induce changes in the brain and in the body, we need at least 8 weeks practice, from 8 weeks to 12 weeks, ideally. And it's about breathing, exercising. It's about connecting with the self, with the inner space, which is called the interoception. It's a proper sense. We believe we have 5 senses, but actually we have many more senses. And one of these senses is interoception, which is the awareness of the space inside the body, awareness of what's going on inside the body. So obviously you understand that for a mother, a pregnant mother, in order to connect with the baby, she needs to connect with herself first, to be aware of her own emotions. And if there isn't this capacity because of stress, because of anxiety, depression, which is, becoming more and more common in our world, then it becomes more difficult to connect. So that's why, and it's very sad that actually the West still hasn't properly understood the set of skills that mindfulness practice can offer. Probably is because it's a way of life. It's not just a meditation. People think it's a moment of meditation. It's not. It's a way of life. It's a way of being and doing as well. And when I visited the Himba, an indigenous tribe of the northern Namibia, actually, I realized, and I spent some time with them, with my husband and the young girls in 2015, I realized actually that what I had read, that mindfulness is the most ancient practice that has guided mothers and humanity for thousands of years. People have lived with awareness, with connection with every element of nature, animating, ascribing a soul to every element of nature. So imagine a mother, connecting with the soul of the child even before conceiving. So I realized actually that it was so true. So these communities, they live with, in a very slow pace of life. The fluidity of movements when they handle babies that reflect this relaxation in their body, because obviously they don't have the stresses that we have. So they are highly connected. So I had a tangible experience of what mindfulness, and because of the small society, it was very easy for me to observe, their mindful way of living and the way they dealt with children. You could rarely see a child having a tantrum, because as they start show discomfort with their body language, the mother promptly respond, recognizing the body.
Yeah, and you are actually talking also about relation, human connection, right?
Absolutely.
And what do you think that during pregnancy, what is the role of that human connection in shaping the child's emotional and psychological development?
All right, as Dr. Stephen Porges say, connection is a biological necessity. And I believe that in pregnancy even more, because we know there is this beautiful organ, the placenta, where unfortunately the Western world get discarded, but in indigenous people is the symbol of the connection between mother and baby. So it should be really honored, and it's a sacred organ. I can tell lots of stories about, the practice of the indigenous people. But the connection, which is what we call You know, I don't like using terms like attachment because they are a construct of the Western theories. But connection is biological, and it's not just biological, it's spiritual, it's emotional. There is a lot, it's a cocktail of pathways that shape this connection, and is very intimate. No one can really access and understand. I mean, we can study, you know, this connection, but it will only, the scientific method will only describe a small aspect. Like, for instance, they discover now that while the mother is yawning with ultrasound, they picture the baby yawning at the same. This is a beautiful, but it's a small part. So can you imagine how much is going on there in terms of resonance and attunement? The baby doesn't see the mother yawning, yet this happened through a very intimate connection. So my thesis, my PhD thesis, which is actually on the association between mindfulness, maternal mental health, in particular stress, depression, and anxiety, and mother-baby's relationship from before birth, so during pregnancy and post-birth, found very interesting outcomes, which actually reaffirm what actually I had intuitively come, you know, the insight that I had got while observing the him bodies indigenous people, where you can see how these three domains of mothers are closely linked, because to connect with your child, you need to be, you know, you can't be stressed. And so this connection is biological, because we know now how the stress through the placenta is transmitted via the cortisol energy. So quantum physics. But what is fascinating is that what we are studying now has been known by indigenous women for 99.9% of the humanity history, which means that this knowledge is in women's DNA. So it's not a theoretical teaching. We can only guide mothers to rediscover what is inside them. And that's why the Western paradigm is incorrect, because it's based on intellectual learning. And we know the effect on labor, birth, but actually the body, it's an embodied mind. And, you know, Thomas Vernis wrote an entire book on it. So now mindfulness fosters these abilities, which is the connection with, you know, your emotion, breathing, heart, all your organs. So imagine with a human being developing in the body, interoception, so this awareness of what's going on in the body, and self-regulation, emotional regulation. So, you know, we prepare the mother. Of course, I include the fathers, but I'm focused on the mother because the mother is pregnant, but the role of the father is very, very important, especially in supporting the mother. So all these abilities like attunement, regulation, befriending with the challenging emotion, can you see how important is to equip the parents with these abilities after birth, so that when the baby is crying, the mother can regulate the baby by regulating herself first. And, you know, now there is a lot of talk about the sleep training. But we just missed the core, the point that the baby needs a body, needs a nervous system. When I say a body, I don't say mechanical way, but, you know, the body with all its beautiful psyche embodied needs a body to be regulated. So and it happens the same in pregnancy. There are many ways to connect, to shape, to prepare this connection before the baby.
You are talking about integrating science, integrating mindfulness, and also your work in indigenous wisdom traditions. How can we integrate this and these perspectives? How can they come together when we talk about pregnancy and parenting?
Yes, absolutely. I would say that we don't need more science, because science, what distinguishes indigenous wisdom and the scientific method and contemplative traditions, like mindfulness, is just a way of knowing reality. So the scientific method that we know, I have a PhD, so I'm a scientist, but I'm aware of the reductionism of this method, because the focus is narrow. So you will never offer an overall picture of the complexity of pregnancy. So we need another way. So prenatal sciences, it's a reductionist. We need more. And, I like the terms prenatal alliance, because it's an alliance, it's prenatal. It's not about this, it's about this. It really gives a sense of the integration. So Daniel Siegel talks about consilience, and it's a beautiful concept. It's a common ground where all disciplines and all this body of knowledge, like science and indigenous wisdom, and they come together. And we need that, because at the moment the knowledge is very fragmented. With social media, I'm sure you share the same feeling. You get courses, mothers are confused, they don't know which one to join, conflicting information. So I'm not sure that's beneficial. So we really need to create a coherent, a consilience, a coherent body of knowledge and this only comes from cooperation. And then I will tell you at the end, the last question, what I propose.
Yeah.
But I think we urgently need that, because it's really, birth is becoming more and more mechanistic, and pregnancy as well. We need to really convey the messages about the complexity and the beauty, and, help women to fall in love.
In your work, you have tried to integrate this knowledge, and you developed the prenatal mindfulness relationship-based program. Tell us a little bit about that. What are those practices and experience to help parents become more aware of this relationship of the mother and the baby and parents during pregnancy?
So I developed this program on the base of all these experiences, which is based on science, so epigenetics, all the science which actually makes prenatal psychology interdisciplinary field by nature. Okay, so it is about integrative health and the integrative healthcare. The program is based on mindfulness, but there's something more. It's the first mindfulness-based program which is actually focused on the mother-baby relationship before pregnancy. Because if you search, and 99% of the programs are focused on maternal mental health, so anxiety, stress, depression, leading to very good outcomes. But during my research, during my project, I saw the gap between prenatal psychology and this mindfulness-based program. So I put them together so that, I could provide both pregnant couples and professional with the theoretical knowledge about prenatal psychology, and at the same time self-development, so practices. So the program is as a 9 session weekly. And you know that nowadays everything is brief, everything is short. Some people say, but it's too long. The session is too long. That's the problem. That's the problem. If we carry on with this mentality that everything has to be short, we are just reconfirming what is actually what we miss. We can't induce change without the practice. And practice takes time, commitment. And that's what we need. So every week
it's the fast generation. It's the fast food, fast information. Everything needs to be fast. Yes,
and
I do agree with you. It needs to be integrated. It needs time.
I just completed, reconstructed my website, and my daughter, Mom, too much information. She said, I don't care. Someone who really wants, that's a generous act. I want to share all what is needed to be shared. If someone doesn't want, then that's the problem. It's how is this new generation gonna experience labor? They will request, epidural induction immediately. So that's why, the narrative nowadays is all about trauma, is about therapy, is about things, but we need to change the narrative and focus on the inner resources. And this program also implies practice at home. So the women do journaling and a sort of a diary, letters to the baby. Then they read a chapter of one of my forthcoming books, Embodied Relationship, which actually draws on my first pregnancy 20 years ago. So where there is a description of the communication with my baby, the music, how she molded their movement in rhythm with the music. It's really something unprecedented that I would love actually to invite women to do that, because writing is so therapeutic. It's such a beautiful healing and communicative tool. And so there are many resources, Susanna, that mothers have forgotten. I wouldn't say ever forgotten. So, the indigenous women, and actually the beauty of this program is its versatility, because it can be used before conception. And in fact, if you visit my website, you see one of the programs on preconception, where, and I was curious, I was going on Google and finding, the preconception courses, and I was so disappointed. They're all based on exercise, medical check, if you had vaccination, there is no spirituality. And my program is focused, the program includes also fertility problems, stillbirth, or, trauma experience, about pregnancy. And this is something I was already doing in London, connecting with the soul of the child. And I've been inspired by indigenous women. Before conceiving a child, they go into the bush or the forest according to where they live, and they sing a song. They call for the soul of the child. And when they hear the soul, they go into the heart. They conceive the child already conceived. They consider. So they go into the heart and they conceive with the partner. So actually it's like welcoming the soul into, the body. Now, I think one of the major problems in our world is that this contemplative space, holding space, that is holding for the mother, holding for in perspective already for the baby, doesn't exist anymore because of everything is fast. And then most women are focused on career, and then suddenly with the biological clock, they realize, oh my God, I need to have a child. And so
and this is one of the aspects that I wanted to ask you as well, is how can mindfulness help to create this space of calmer and connection, that inner environment for them and also for their baby?
Because, stress, anxiety, and psychological disorder in general creates a disconnection from the body, which is obviously not, it doesn't help welcoming the baby into the body. So the practice of mindfulness, first of all, helps, teaches how to cope with emotions, especially challenging emotions. And that's why it's been proved that it is very effective when, with the depression, anxiety, and stress. But during the meditation practice, for instance, session, 20 minutes in general, so while connecting with the breathing, my goal is also to enhance the awareness of the relationship between the baby's activities and the mother's breathing. So it's an awareness that is always goes together, with the, the significant organs like the heart and the lungs, breathing with the babies, also visualizations. No, this is another area which actually I found some women find it difficult to visualize. And also when they discover that the baby is a sentient being able to develop a relationship, you have no idea how amazed they are. And this is an ancient knowledge. It's there in their DNA, but they've been so distracted. And this is, is linked to historical event, phenomenon like, capitalism, colonialism, which deprive, women of their sense of belonging to the land, to their origins, to their roots, and it's transmitted through generations. I mean, if you think of all the population that have been colonized.
Yeah,
so,
and that it's so interesting how those connections have been transgenerational, right? And one of the things that I wanted to ask you finally is what can we change? How can we as a modern societies approach pregnancy and early parenting in a way that it reflects that inner calmness, but also that connection that needs to exist, and it is it's biological. It's what the baby also expects, that comes from millions and millions of years of evolution. What would be your suggestions?
Okay, my suggestion is that to incorporate self-development and prenatal psychology training into the training of all birth professionals. And for instance, just there's an example in the University of Monash in Melbourne. It's been the first university in the world where they introduced mindfulness training to medical trainees, including obstetricians, to become able to deal with stress, because these professionals get very stressed, and they have also trauma, and these traumas prevent them from connecting with a pregnant or laboring woman. Actually, sometimes, through mirroring, the increase of adrenaline or cortisol affects a laboring woman. So if we change the trainings, and that's what I'm trying to do, but it will take a long time, then, also the way this professional related to women will change, because a pregnant woman, we want to be just a pregnant woman, but it will be the holder, the generator of future generations. And so, mindfulness includes self-compassion, loving kindness, and attunement, and cultural sensitivity. Nowadays, we need cultural sensitivity, because more and more, pregnant women happen to be in a country that is not theirs, where they don't feel connected. And in pregnancy, you know how important it is to have your mother, your culture, your relatives, the community. And sorry that I haven't actually named the community, which has been for thousands of years the source of support. In these indigenous communities, mothers never get stressed. You don't even figure out immediately who the mother is, because everyone looks after the child. So we need to consider the children from before conception, the most important thing in absolute. And now what actually is really amazing is that in the UK, we have the first report. And we already had the reports about the effect of maternal mental health, because we know maternal mental health, how impact on child development, from pregnancy onwards, with the lifelong, consequences. So we already had the reports about the effects on, the cost of treating psychosis or postnatal depression, etc., on economy. So imagine reducing this cost. But now there are the first reports on the effect of the relationship of secure attachment, and in my thesis, I revolutionized the concept of attachment, which is rooted in pregnancy, not a year after birth, but in pregnancy. So the economic effect of this relationship, because now even the government acknowledges, actually the report comes from Parenting Foundation and Center for Mental Health, that this relationship is a source of health for the individuals, for next generations, from the society, humanity, but also for economy. Because instead of investing money on treatment, we can invest, on, pregnancy. So we should actually really have more quality times for pregnancy for children. The government should offer working parents knowledge, preparation, but the time to spend with their children, because they are really the greatest capital. So we have to start with the professionals, with university courses, and another thing, cross-disciplinary. Okay, so we need to bring all this discipline together.
Yeah, and that is one of the things that I think are the core of Prenatal Alliance is this connection between these disciplines, because we have obstetricians, we have psychology, we have midwives, so many people that are working in the prenatal field, and suddenly they are all separate. And when they come together, they all want the same goal. They want the baby, the mother, the family, the community to have a positive impact on that child, so we can all work together to make that happen. I think in some ways it was important for them on their field, to develop their field, to be separate, but now we are in a place of integration. We can work together to make this experience and the experience of future generations, even peace in the world, compassion, calmness, self-regulation, to have a bigger, wider impact. Invest in prevention and not just in the treatment.
Yes, and the Eastern culture brings so much goodness, because it's focused on, I don't like the word prevention, enhancement of health, because it's another construction, Western construction, because presume the existence of illness. So we prevent illness, but we want to enhance health, and all this mindfulness, indigenous, culture, they are ancient. So we need, look, the evidence that this culture bring is ancient. So it's quantum physics. These people have believed in energy fields and how we affect in the connection, this interconnection, vision of the world that they have, and beautiful, and now we have to teach what actually allowed us to evolve as a human being for 99.9% of the human history. Now we have to re-educate, and unfortunately focuses on the left brain, analytic, logistic, linguistic, and suppressing the right brain, which is the brain dominant in early life, and then is put it aside and repressing children because they have to fit into a society which is actually, the scientific method, which is important, but they have to be together. And that's why all my books, especially next book, my latest, and they all focus on the, consilience, on the integration. And why do I use integrative healthcare? Because health is integrative. Actually, we shouldn't even need to use the word. We work as an integrative whole organism being. And unfortunately, as you said, all these discipline study or try to heal the individual from the specific perspective, and never works, because there is always something to miss. You go to the GP, It looks at the symptom, but the symptom is not the problem. The problem is rooted, it's deep down. So they have 5 minutes. How is gonna, and that's why uncommunicable disease and all these diseases, and it's society that becomes more and more ill and unhappy and stressed,
Dr.
etc.
Antonella, I think your work is so important. We are going to put on this video all the links, not only for the work that you are doing in your wonderful website with excellent information that I tell everyone to please check in, but also to your books, because I think they are wonderful. They have wonderful resources for mothers and babies and professionals. Dr. Antonella, thank you so much for your contribute to this
Thank
conversation
you.
today.
It was delightful. Thank you, Susanna.